Hello and welcome to Impactful Conversations with me, Dr. Glenn Wallace, and my very good friend and co-host, Nejmi Alexander. Nejmi, hi, mate, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Glenn. Very well. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, great. And we are joined today by somebody I've had the pleasure of knowing for 3 years, I think maybe four, Cécile Cluitmans, who's a very amazing woman in lots of ways, but she's also a very senior executive leader in a highly commercial business that we'll hear a little bit more about. And in many ways, I'm genuinely uh, struck by Cecile's capability as a very senior leader, as I say, in a global business that is quite dominated, male dominated, got lots of engineers in it, lots of consultants in it. And it's been a pleasure to see her thrive. Cecile, thank you so much for agreeing to come on to Impactful Conversations with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, let's hear a little bit about your background then, Nijmi. I think you had a question for Cecile just to kick us off.
Yeah, that's right. So, and just to give us some context for our dear listeners, Cecile, of your career today, I think we're going to explore your take on leadership, commercial leadership, and particularly, leadership as a woman in a heavily, male dominated environment. And so before we explore some of those topics and bring that insight to life, maybe it would be useful to just give us a quick whistle stop tour of your career to date.
Yeah, well, happy to do so. Yeah, my name is Cécile Cluitmans. I am a civil engineer by background. So when I was at university, I was already in a male-dominated environment. And also when I started working at the company where I work now, and I worked there for almost 25 years, all the time in the same company, which is a global engineering company. I started there as a trainee, and I climbed through the ranks, not on a traditional way, I would say, because I worked in several different roles. I was a project manager, was a consultant. I worked in the highways industry. I worked in rail, in environmental, and in energy, and in buildings and real estate. So I've seen quite a lot of clients from different perspectives and also different roles. And at the moment, I'm accountable for leading a European team in the field of climate, energy, water, and environment. And yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds then that you've kind of always been in a male dominated environment in your professional career, if I'm not mistaken from that background then, Cecile. So um I'm really interested in your like bringing to life some of your experience in that context, especially as you have grown into your leadership in that context too. Um, have you ever felt that you needed to, prove your commercial credibility or maybe your leadership credibility differently from some of your peers or others around you?
Yes, early in my career, I was very aware that commercial credibility was not automatically attributed to me in the same way as it sometimes was to my male peers. I felt that I had to be exceptionally well prepared, deeply fact based, and also link ideas that it would have to financial outcomes more than, for example, human impact or societal value. And I was pretty much, yeah, also kind of common to that because that was already the fact during university.
Mm.
But and rather than resisting that reality, I leaned into building trust. I made sure I understood the numbers better than anyone else in the room. I made sure that I delivered or even overperformed on what we agreed. But next to that, I also added my own perspective, maybe not on a male way, based on numbers, but also a little bit more with a female touch. And over time, I think that my that credibility actually shifted from something I had to prove to something that was assumed. But it started really with consistent performance, and visible results. That's in my belief what was the reality. And I was very aware that as a woman in a male dominated environment, you are more visible, which means that if you perform, that is seen better, but also if you don't perform, that is seen even more. And I think being in a minority, and that's probably not only for females, but in general, when you are in a minority, people tend to watch you more because it's more visible what you're doing. And so I was very, very aware of that. And that was mainly during the early days of my career. I think, well, through my career moving forward, I'm not really a person shouting about her results or about my responsibilities or how many FTE do I lead, what is my net revenue. But I learned later in my career from a male colleague, by the way, that it is important to make visible what your responsibilities are, and that numbers do tell. So I changed also my LinkedIn profile, for example, with some additional data about how many people do I lead, what's the net revenue I'm responsible for, and yeah, maybe it feels a little bit like an ideological way of thinking, but I hope that that was not necessary. But yeah, I learned throughout my career that it does matter, and that you make things visible, not only being visible as a woman because you're a minority, but also make it by data and metrics more clear.
Yeah.
There's so much in there to unpack. Nejmi, you looked like you were going to have a follow-up question, did you?
Yeah, so the topic of visibility and comfort levels with, you know, doing that, you know, blowing your own trumpet, I think is often a language that that comes up in like coaching sessions with people as like something that they're resistant to doing. People don't want necessarily to do that. And it sounds like, Cécile, maybe you came through a journey around ideologically whether, you know, feeling like don't really want to do that. I want my work to sort of speak for itself, to actually recognizing the value in, you know, showcasing the impact that you have and being very, you know, active around your visibility. What was useful for you in sort of navigating towards that point, like recognizing actually that I do need to stand behind this and be a bit more maybe vocal around that? You know, how did you navigate that?
Cool, that's a good question. I think, how did I navigate it? Yeah, I think in the end, it's all about staying also authentic. It's like maybe sounds like a little bit of a no-brainer, but I think I consciously or unconsciously try to adjust my style to fit also a little bit to the environments where I was working into. Um, but I also found out that mirroring the behavior of people surrounding me was not always helpful. So staying authentic to myself and well, also ask for feedback. Actually, create good check-in moments with people. Um, I think I think that was Did I deliberately did something different? Not sure actually, but I think yeah, just acting like we need to fit in or be one of the guys, or that was also not necessarily the way moving forward. I think what I did was actually bring my own version of myself to the conversations and focus on the things that I need to deliver, but also focus on engaging people, build relationships, create also my kind of buddies and how you call it. I'm looking for the English word as a non-native, but creating a team around you, not necessarily people that actually are direct reports to you, but really create peers and trusted people around you, and that also helped me navigate.
See, what's striking me, Cécile, as you speak, is that a lot of what you've talked about would be, I've heard senior male leader, you know, executive leaders say many of those things, right? Which is, I'm not really good at data, so I've decided that I will lean into data, or I don't want to do the whole self, shouting about myself all the time. So I need to understand. One thing we definitely need to come back to, which is your idea about leading within the context in which you're leading, which I think is great. So how much of this is about you developing as an exec leader versus you developing as an exec leader who happens to be a woman, do you think? Are you able to sort of
Yeah.
pull those things apart?
Yeah, actually, I am uh, pretty much aware of the fact that I am a woman.
That's a
Uh,
good thing.
yeah, and uh, and also, but because what I said earlier, the fact that I am aware that being a woman, being in a minority in the engineering business, and knowing
Yeah,
that because of that you are visible,
yeah,
that makes it that way. Do I do things so different because I'm a woman? I don't think necessarily. I also know a lot of female behavior within my male colleagues, and I
mm,
also recognize
yeah,
male behavior, or what is called male behavior, within females. Also with females where I worked with, and I can also show some male behaviors if you want, when it's functional. And I think
yeah,
that's also the context where we work in, and.
yeah,
Yeah, so how conscious and unconscious is it? I think there are situations where I do very conscious things, and I do it because I'm a woman. So
mm,
it sounds a little bit silly, but when I do negotiations, for example, and this sounds very silly, I never use lipstick, but when I know that I have very harsh negotiations, then I use lipstick,
really
because
interesting.
then it gives you confidence.
All right.
And I learned that from another female leader, who really said literally to me, "Okay, we go to the toilet, we put war collars on," and and that's really something that shaped me also in, okay, yeah, when do you use your also female visibility, not only as being a minority, but also, okay, how you appear.
Yep.
Yeah, so then it's conscious, but I think most of the time, yeah, being an executive or being a female executive, um I hope it's a little bit the same, but in some situations, yeah, I've never seen a male putting lipstick on his lips, me, to make the negotiation easier.
Easier. Yeah, for sure. It's a really good point. I think the thing you said about, it's not necessarily that the skills are particularly different. It's maybe the context within which you're leading as a female leader. So actually you're under greater scrutiny, which just leaves me a little bit disappointed in the world, really. If we're here in 2026 and we haven't moved on beyond that, and that's still a thing. Yeah, I just feel a bit. I feel a bit disappointed in the fact that organisations haven't really done a lot of talk over the last, well, since the female sort of liberation piece in the sort of 70s and moving on in the 1970s and on. Still seems like we're a long, long way off parity. Does it feel like there's still a lot? How do you let me? I don't want to put words into your mouth. How do
Yeah.
you feel about the gap between, the perception of male executive leaders and female executive leaders? Has it shifted over the course of your career?
Yeah, I saw it shifting, and I have to admit that although I'm from the Netherlands, you hear that by my accent, I think.
Mhm.
But although we think we are a very a liberal country, and where a lot of things are possible, actually, I'm pretty disappointed in the amount of females in leadership positions.
Right.
When I look into our company, for example, we have 35% females in the Dutch part of the business, whilst in the Philippines, it's 50%. So I think it is also very culturally, in which country do you see how many females in roles, and then next to that, how many of those take leadership roles. And yes, I do see that it's going not that fast, to
Mm.
be honest. Um, and you really need to put emphasis on it. And within the company where I work for, we also try to appoint more senior females in roles, and For example, what do I do when I'm appointing people in my team? I don't start any hiring conversation, if I only have male candidates, because I want to have the diversity. I want to have the choice. And when I work, for example, with a headhunter, and they come to me with, okay, these are the 5 candidates that we have, and it's only male, then I just send them back and, okay, do your homework better, because I think you're not looking good enough into the environment to find other talents. But
Mm.
yeah, it is. I do agree. It is a bit disappointing, but I think it's also, and it's, we as females also don't make it easy for ourselves. I also saw some situations where females were far more harsh to each other than they would be to a male
Right.
colleague, for example, because we expect a specific delivery or a specific quality, and that's what we also expect from from other leaders, male and female. But I think we can be sometimes also too harsh on each other. And I really like actually the quote from Margaret Albright, the former minister of the U.S., who said there is a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. I really like that quote, because I think we should do better also to help each other.
That's really
And
interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
that without going into specific situations, can you give us a little bit more color on that? Because it's not something I've heard anyone talk about, this idea of how actually women are actively sort of undermining other female leaders, maybe, or certainly not helping them in that way. Are you able, without again keeping it anonymized and sort of general, maybe,
Yes.
that how does that actually play out, or what examples have you seen of it?
Well, I've seen examples of females making it more difficult for other females. So queen bee behavior. I've seen that. I also saw in conversations between clients and our company that there was also a kind of a queen bee behavior. So, and I'm not telling that every woman is
Of
doing that, but
course.
also saw that. I also saw, and that's more the fact that, to be honest, is that there are more people that and females that help other female than that make it difficult for each other. But I think also unconsciously, and I might do it myself as well, because I'm also a mom of 3 children, and I'm harsh on other women that don't have a career next to having children, for example, because my bias is, okay, why you're not choosing yourself for your own career, and why would you only be a mom? So I'm in another way, I'm also harsh on females as well.
Interesting. Yeah,
Mm.
interesting.
It's really interesting that you described, of course, not from a gender perspective, but certainly from a race perspective. I've similarly felt at times in career, having from other minority leaders, having a different bar of expectation for me versus other people. And it's fascinating where, bias, conscious or otherwise, can come into how we perceive, situations or our expectations of others. And I think intellectually, of course, we know, like, well, that shouldn't be the case. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. And the outcomes of, when biases kind of show themselves in leadership or in an organization, that shouldn't be the case. But that's, we don't live in a perfect world, and if we want to see progress on that front, then it often has to come from a few different lenses, right? From the organization, from individuals within the organization, from leadership, etc. When it comes to progress on gender, and gender within leadership, what's your take, Cecile, around, to what extent do you feel that progress comes from individual leaders, maybe other female leaders, or male allies in leadership positions, taking a stance, taking action to drive difference or progress up front, versus individuals within the system driving that? What do you feel?
Well, I think And individual adaptability in a way helps people navigate systems, right?
Yeah.
But real sustainable progress comes when organization actually redefines leaderships themselves. So and I was helped within my organization when I got a role that was positioned equally to a P&L role. And my manager literally said to me, Cecile, I want to empower you, and therefore I'm giving you a position in this management team. So I think there's really something also in the organization that you need to believe in, and that you need to also act to. And originally, and especially I think in the type of organization where I work, and in an environment with engineers who can be very well black and white, I
Mm.
would say, and where leadership is very closely related also to the position that you hold, the knowledge that you have, and the hierarchy of an organization. And I think that that is typical for engineering and maybe also male dominated companies. And here it helped me as a leader that my manager, my leader, was outspoken about my role and how he supported me. That really also gave me confidence. And what also I think is more male is, I think, linear career path, and my career path is more a squiggly career path, if I would say it like that.
Yeah.
And I did move through my company in different roles, and that shaped me. But I also could influence the organization by doing so. So it's not only yeah. So I think that's also how progress goes in two directions. It's how is an organization helping you to progress, and how can you influence an organization to progress. And I think if leadership uh, continues to be unconsciously associated with traditionally masculine traits, so the importance of hierarchy, of linear career paths, or being a bit or aggressive, then I think we are asking women to adapt to a narrow mold, and I think that's not where the world becomes better from.
Mm.
So
And,
that would be my
and also because of you've mentioned motherhood, because that's not something that men go through, at least not in 2026. That actually it's an unfair expectation to have a linear path, because actually if motherhood is part, and I absolutely accept it's not everybody's, and that's your choice. It's either your choice or
Mm.
you can't have, whatever the situation is. That that particular event is inevitably makes a female's career less linear than a man's, like for like.
Yeah, that's also true. I think that's also true. And actually, I must say that I think I became a better manager when I also became a mother, because then I needed to manage my career and my private life. And I was responsible not only for business, but also for a newborn. And that made me also realize how important things are, but also how you need to also balance also your own balancing act. And yeah, I think it also did move also my career path.
How consciously, this is linked to your last answer, Cecile, how consciously did you set out, or have you set out to become, a very senior leader in a very large organization? Because to some extent, what I'm hearing is that as a female and as a mum, your path isn't linear. But could you still see, however many years ago when you were sort of first in that space, there's a route for me here, and I want to pursue senior leadership, or has it sort of evolved with your career
Yeah.
evolving?
Actually, it's more the latter, but it started with the first. So actually, when I was really a young, eager starter at the labor market, and I had one of my first conversations with my manager about, okay, well, how would you like to proceed in your career? Then one of the things I said to him, okay, well, in 7 years' time from now, I would like to have your job. That was literally what I said to him. Like, okay, this is actually, and that was linear, because that would be a step up, directly being the successor of this manager. And I did so. I became that person indeed. But that was the only thing when I really positioned myself. Okay, this is the next step I would like to do. I was in a lucky situation that I was in a talent program within my organization, and I had an executive coach. It was somebody who was in our executive leadership team, and that person challenged me. And I was working for, what was it? I think almost 10 years in the infrastructure business. And this person told me, okay, Cecile, you are now for 10 years in the infrastructure business, because I started as a trainee, then I was a consultant, a project manager, senior project manager, a team leader, and then head of a business unit. And he said, well, that's a lot of that's a lot of infrastructure, and that's a lot of the same thing, but ever in a bigger responsibility. And that triggered me actually also to step out of my comfort zone, because there was, of course, there was much more than only infrastructure. And when we had a reorganization within our company, and our CEO at that moment said, okay, Cecile, we're going to reorganize the company, and these are the roles that become available, and these are the potential roles where I could see you apply. Then I deliberately made the choice to put my name actually in the box of the position that was most far away from me. So when you're talking about how can you step out of your comfort zone, this was what really would make my career different. It was a role that never existed before, so I had not really a person where I could think about, like, hey, this is my my idol. This is the way how I could do the role. So I had a lot of liberty actually to create that role from scratch. And the fact that, well, one, the fact that I got the confidence from my CEO that I was asked to potentially step into that role gave me a lot of confidence. But also the support from that coach that actually told me, okay, doing the same thing, because, and there's even a book with the title, if you want to get there, what was it again? There,
What got you here won't get you there.
yeah,
Oh, no.
exactly. That one. And
Yeah.
that's literally what I thought about. Okay, but if
Wow.
I really want to move further, then I do better not to take the most logical next
Yeah.
step, but maybe this next step which is most far away from me, because that's giving me the opportunity to learn more
Love
and
that.
to broaden my scope. And I never regretted that step. And it was not only because it was not in infrastructure anymore, it was in a different sector, but it was also different because I used to lead P&L, I used to lead people, and in this role, I became responsible for a sales target and for business development. So actually, I did not have a team of direct reports. I did not even have a real budget responsibility. And when you talk about commercial acumen, here's where I learned commercial acumen. How can you lead? How can you lead a business? How can you influence an organization without the necessity of owning a P&L or having direct reports? This is where leadership really developed for me, because then I needed to develop much more my influential skills and lead by example, by role modeling behavior, and not because of the hierarchy in the organization where you are in. So yeah, that was for me a very interesting leadership lesson.
Mm.
And that would be the
It,
same, I think, if I would have been a man, by the way. And actually after that, all my next steps in my career were not necessarily the steps that I thought, okay, this will be my next position, or that will be my next role. And that's why I call it the squiggly career. Only my first real step to a leadership position, that was a step that I thought, okay, this would be great. Yeah, if I could become the head of that business unit. But all the other roles, also the role that I have now, was not a role where I actually what I desired to do. And the role that I did before here, before I did this role, I was the global operations director for an industry in buildings. I never led an operations role, and I never was in a global role before. But because somebody also tapped me on the shoulder
Yeah.
and told me, okay, maybe you should apply. And I was thinking, yeah, why not? Because I've done it before. I did it before that I did not apply for the most logical role, but maybe the one that was more outside of my comfort zone. And I gained a lot of lessons learned there. And I think what I also, and it's also something that I teach my children, but you'd better do things and learn from it than that you don't do things and you regret from it for life.
Mm, mm,
Because I think that you cannot change. And
yeah,
but the experience that you get from the choices that you do, there you can benefit from.
yeah.
It feels like there are some
Amazing.
really strong sort of themes around, whether with intent or not, advice effectively. Taking from your story, Cecile, it feels like, establishing credibility around, whichever pillars help to establish credibility, really focusing on that, doing what is required to have confidence within a context, building trust, and
Yeah,
also in the story that you just shared there, just being courageous, right? Whether that means
100%.
seeking out support from or challenge from certain, sort of that's areas in one's career or within one's, stakeholder map or whatever it might be, but also then taking, the courageous step, because that it feels like, yeah, actually that's what you're describing here, to me. It's just taking courageous steps in one's career, and that, I think, is an important takeaway for any ambitious leader, female leader or otherwise, around where could you, focus, borrowing
Yeah.
from your story.
I think the thing I would just add to that is when you say squiggly career, Cecile, that could be interpreted as you were reacting to things. But what I'm hearing loud and clear to Nejmi's point is it was very deliberate. It was very deliberate that you chose to go to somewhere that was way outside of your comfort zone. And take that brave. But courage is exactly the word that was going off in my head. I think as I was listening to your story, I was thinking, wow, that's quite risky. If we added the layer of being a female leader into that risk as well, on top of everything we've talked about, good on you. But yeah, and just a couple. I'm just mindful of time, so we don't want to keep you, but because I know you're clearly a very busy woman. What is you've mentioned a couple of times the importance of um, a really good manager or a coach or a sponsor or a mentor. Yeah, sort of if you just think generally about people that have helped you on your way, it for less senior leaders listening to the podcast now, what would your advice be around finding and engaging with sponsors and coaches and mentors? I don't mean professional coaches. I mean people inside the organization that might be able to do that.
Well, and actually, this is a very good point because I think make sure that you have your own alliances and your allies surrounding you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
And sponsorship has been very important, maybe even pivotal to me. And,
Mm.
and for me, there is a meaningful difference between mentorship and sponsorship. A good sponsorship is somebody who's also advocating for
Yeah.
you in the rooms that you are not in,
Mm.
and that you're being put forward for stretch roles before you fully maybe believe that you are ready yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's really what helped me in those sponsorships, but also honest and sometimes even uncomfortable feedback,
Mm.
because that's also where you can learn from. And that visible endorsement of your potential, that's, I think, an important one. And not only being celebrated by your current performance, but much more about, okay, what is your potential that you have,
Mm.
and looking forward. And well, in the organization where I work for, we also talking about now the skills powered organization, and I really believe that that is a very important topic. It's not about what is your performance today, but what is also your potential, and what are the skills that you also have there and that are maybe not fully used to this point. And to come back to those sponsors, I think the most impactful sponsors, they take a reputational risk on you. And that's what I saw with some managers that I had, and not necessarily managers, could also be people that were in the organization, not necessarily being my manager, but somebody who was really being that ally and advocating for me in rooms where I was not in. And I was lucky to have sponsors during my career, men and women both,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
extremely
Just
grateful for that they put trust in me and they gave me more confidence. And I really would like to pay that forward as well. So I'm now also coaching some female, but also some men. So we've got a mentorship program within our company. And I think at the moment there are 4 mentees that I'm helping. So I think it's extremely important. And don't underestimate the importance of these kind of informal conversations as well.
And just an extension of that. So if any of our listeners are thinking, actually, I want to be more of a champion or more of a sponsor of, women in my organization or women within my, function or whatever, wherever it might be, what advice would you have for them for what to be aware of or what they could practically do?
Well, be very outspoken in what you want and what you don't want. I think seek actively for allies, for people that can help you. Not necessarily in your company, by the way. It can also be outside of your company. But it's really helpful, I think, inside your company that you are open about your career aspirations, about the things that you like and that you don't like, not necessarily only to the people that are your direct manager, but also to people that are in positions that might can have an influence on your career development. When I had a role and I thought like, okay, I'm not going to do this role for another year or 2 years, because then actually I don't think that that the company is also using my talent in the right way, because at that moment I was too much soaked into an internal role and I really missed the conversations with clients. And then I reached out to some people that I knew in the company in an executive position, and I told them, okay, look, this is where I am now, and I'm really looking for a new challenge. So if you have your ears and eyes open and you see things that you think are interested for me, or you give me a nudge, because don't. I think what is something I really would like to give an advice also to, in general, to leaders. Don't look only in your own silo. And I've learned that doing that squiggly career through the company where I work for. And there was a natural intent, actually, I think, that people really think, okay, who are my successors? Are they in my own remit? But also look outside of your own remit. Also look outside of the comfort zone. I think that's making a company better. It's creating better opportunities for people in your organization, but it also creates potential, for example, in cross-selling or in new business development, because you're giving new perspectives to areas where they might have not thought about specific things.
Yeah, really cool. Look, we could go on because there's so much more. There's so many more questions I want to ask you. Maybe we'll invite you back, Cécile, for another part 2, maybe at some point. I just want to say on behalf of both of us, thank you so much for coming and sharing, being so open. I think there's so much value that people listening to it, whether it's a female leaders or male leaders, or however you want to categorize people, just leaders who are listening. So much to take away from that. I think so much insight that you've shared because you've lived it. It's been your experience. It's not conceptual. You've not read it in a book. It's what you've lived through. And I think therefore makes it even more valuable. So thank you so much for your time and coming on the podcast. And we look forward to inviting you again at some stage.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Cécile.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.